as the founder. Your role is to constantly try and make yourself redundant.
Here you are doing all the hats. Then you figure out what hat maybe is the most important or the one that you don't like and say, okay, who can I have that's going to take this a level higher than me?
At the beginning, unfortunately, it's kind of a bullet you have to bite sometimes, but try and get out of that as fast as possible.
Hi, everyone. Today we have Karl Swanepoel with us today. He's out of Wales. He has a company that he built right out of college that has to do with helping connect clients to freelancers. So think of the big guys, Fiverr and Upwork, but his platform benefits the freelancers more than the other platforms do, and that's causing him to grow at record pace. So listen in on our podcast and learn all kinds of new things. Friends, I have Karl Swanepoel here today to share his story of success and significance. So Karl, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jen.
Yes. So I ran across you, or you ran across me somehow on LinkedIn, and your bio is amazing. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. In fact, I started when I was 13, first freelancing and then kind of starting different small businesses online. I think, like most notably, I built and sold a freelancing company when I was 15. And then, again, more recently, obviously, about 2 years ago, I founded a company called Revolancer, which is set to change the freelancing industry for the better. And that's been my kind of long-term goal for a while now.
Okay. So when I think of the freelancing industry, I think of Fiverr and Upwork. So are those kind of your competitors?
In some ways they are, in some ways not. Like they have a similar kind of target audience, but we do quite different things, or I'd say approach the problem in a different way. So Fiverr and Upwork in a lot of ways are philosophically like quite similar. So they connect freelancers with clients. They charge freelancers a commission fee, which in some cases can be quite large, up to 20% or so. And essentially we approach it and the other thing to add to that is they also ban kind of external communication to protect that commission fee. And we approach it from a different angle, which is that we don't charge commission fees. And because of that, we don't need to restrict communication. So fundamentally, we're all about kind of prioritizing the freelancer and giving them everything they need to succeed, because ultimately that way the client is getting the best, the best kind of pool of freelancers.
I like it. And how are you getting compensated then? Is the client paying you a finder's fee?
So at the moment, we aren't actually monetizing in any way. But in the past, we have had different monthly subscription plans, which we kind of collected some interesting data from. And in the future, we're going to find, sort of certain features that people find very valuable and are willing to pay for and then charge for those. But fundamentally, I always want Revolancer to, be such that someone can get started on there for free and really thrive.
Excellent. Now, is there a certain industry that you focus on? Is there certain types of freelancers that are more specialized?
Yes, absolutely. So it's essentially anything that can be done remotely and can benefit a small business. So typically we see things like marketing, media, graphic design, and web development kind of tasks. Those are kind of the main four categories. But we have, things outside of that too.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, so how did this business come alive for you?
Well, like I mentioned, I started freelancing at 13. Then I built and sold a freelancing platform when I was 15. I ended up having to sell it because I was too young to have a PayPal account. So they kept shutting down my account, unfortunately. But it's essentially for a long time now, for about 10 years, but more than 10 years, I've been very much aware of the, what I consider to be the unfairness in this industry, and how that unfairness towards freelancers is actually hurting the clients quite significantly too. And I've been wanting to do something about it. I tried before. Unfortunately, I was too young, so I had to kind of sell that project off, but it still made some small difference. And then more recently, when I was in my final year of university, I was looking at these freelancing platforms, realized they changed nothing in about 8 years, and then decided to start Revolancer and really change this industry for the better. And that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years or so.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like it's hard to do a startup and get all the things going. So how have you gotten to the position that you're in today with that?
It absolutely is, but I've taken it one step at a time. So, I didn't know kind of when I was starting out how to do a lot of the stuff that I have done and do on a daily basis now, but you just kind of take it one thing at a time. And the other thing that I do is learn from people who have done these things before. So I've always worked with different mentors, different advisors, and continue to on a very frequent basis, because that way, I can make decisions like someone who has decades of industry experience can, because essentially I'm using, those decades of industry experience to help aid my decision making, which, otherwise I just simply wouldn't be able to do as a product of my age.
Right. And so did you design the platform and everything? Or have you been able to like outsource a bunch of stuff and bring it all together under your umbrella?
Well, we do everything in-house, but we have a head of product and a CTO, and then a product team and development team who kind of, design and build the different components of the platform. So in the very, very early days, kind of the initial version, yes, I designed and built that, but for a very long time, I haven't touched any of that stuff myself.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Get it big enough so you can hire yourself out of certain roles and let other people do those things so you can excel in other areas. I respect that. How would somebody find you? Are they doing Google searches? Are you targeting clients, or how does that come about?
Yeah, sure. So there are a lot of different kind of channels that we use, but fundamentally, we are trying to, kind of, and we keep improving at this, but trying to build a product that people genuinely love. And when we build a product, a platform that freelancers really, really love and really enjoy using, they will tell other freelancers about it. And that's kind of that's the golden goose. Like that's really what every startup, every, two-sided marketplace startup tries to achieve. And, I'm happy to report that after much trial and erroring, we're actually kind of doing very well at that. So at its core, it's that, but then we have various different campaigns to kind of pour fuel on that fire and kind of accelerate the growth rate even more.
Okay. So are you pulling clients mainly from the US, or where does everybody seem to reside that's using the platform right now?
So the US is actually our largest like geographical cohort for users, but we're open to the whole world, so we have users from most countries around the world.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any super success stories already from like freelancers that you've connected with people?
Well, actually quite a few. So it's been really, really fantastic and very fulfilling, genuinely, to see people succeed, with a product that we kind of put together. And I know, and even just like beyond just kind of anecdotes from people looking at the data. So, how many projects are being completed, just, how much more work is coming to freelancers, from being on the platform. It's very inspiring. And actually, there's a very big influencer in the freelancing space called Alex Fasulo, who is kind of known as the Fiverr millionaire. She became quite big on Fiverr. She has hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. And she recommends Revolancer now, which is again, just a really exciting case study for us to have.
Wow. And she found you, used you, and now is your big like cheerleader on everything? Or do you guys have a revenue sharing agreement with her?
Well, it's a mixture. So we've hired her to kind of do certain social media posts, but she is very selective with who she works with, as she very much should be. But then beyond that, she has been championing us, outside of any paid agreement, in different interviews on our social media and everything. So it's been really good to see that, it's not kind of just a transactional thing for her, but she really believes in the product.
So you started this business in your final year of university. How did you fund it in the beginning? Because these aren't free to get launched and going.
Yeah, so kind of like right at the beginning when it was just at an idea stage, it was really just my time. So, researching, putting together a pitch deck, putting together a very basic MVP, for the platform, which I was able to do myself because my degree is in computer science, and I have previous experience kind of building platforms like that. So I put that all together myself. I then had enough to enter a competition at my university where I was able to secure some seed funding. So that was about £13,000 after a couple of months. And then I basically used that to bring on an initial couple of team members, really build the platform to, kind of a much better degree, launch, get our first, I think, 200 users or so. And then we were in a position to raise our pre-seed round, at which point we could hire a lot more people and scale a lot faster as well.
And how has the scaling process gone for you? Have you ever been like, oh my gosh, we bit off more than we can chew, or has it been pretty steady?
Actually, recently it's kind of been a bit crazy. So like very close to the beginning, when we just launched the platform, I remember we had a goal of reaching, getting sort of 5 users on every day and struggling to do it. So, we had the goal of 5, and then getting, maybe 2 or 3 or something on most days. But actually recently, things have really started picking off because we have a critical mass of users. We have a product that they love that people will kind of share and talk to other people about. We have much better experience now with which campaigns work. So obviously this is probably not going to last forever simply because the user base is growing. But I mean, today, for example, we grew the user base by 5% today alone. And that has actually been this a consistent figure for a couple of weeks now. So we've been scaling very, very fast.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I mean, is that nerve wracking a little bit too? Is there like a point where, okay, we're growing too fast to handle the bandwidth and all the load, or is it going to be okay?
Well, fortunately, we've got a very reliable platform that we built with scale in mind. So when we still had, a very small number of users, we were already thinking big, and unfortunately that's really paying off now.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so tell me when you had a goal of 5 users a day, which I absolutely love because we have to have these big visions, but they have to start with small little things that we do today to add up to those big visions. How did you stay motivated when you only had 2 or 3? And you're like, we needed to get 5, and we didn't get 5.
Well, because I'm motivated to change this industry for the better. Even if it's one freelancer a week is joining or a month. I wouldn't be happy with that, and I'd constantly be looking for ways of increasing that, like I did back then, and why we are now growing much faster. But nonetheless, I think we are making a positive difference on some scale, and that is growing day by day.
Okay, so I know, because I'm a founder, that early days were 12 to 18-hour days because that's what it took. And I didn't really think of it as a negative because I was so passionate about what I was doing that I was like, hey, if this is what it takes, it's worth it for right now. What are your thoughts on like time management and building a business and balance?
It's a great question. I think like at the beginning when it's just you, then there isn't really a good answer, to be honest. I think it kind of has to be, if you're the only one driving things, then even if you give it, 12 to 18-hour days, there's still a pretty good chance that you're not going to get enough done quickly enough. So at the beginning of your journey, I don't think there's really a great answer other than maybe working with a couple of co-founders who are, not interested in kind of a monetary reward in the short term and more interested in, building the business, having some equity as well. So I'd say maybe that's the solution to just not completely overwork yourself. Obviously, like being passionate about what you do is very important. Taking care of yourself outside of work is again very important because that way, you can kind of get away with doing more hours, doing more kind of in work. But as you scale the team, so as you're working with more and more people, I mean, one great piece of advice that I always follow is like as the CEO or kind of as the founder, your role is to constantly try and make yourself redundant. So at the beginning, you're doing everything, and then maybe you think, okay, now I'm ready to hand off the design part or whatever. So you find someone who can do it better than you and hand that over to them. Now you're not doing it anymore. And then, you move on to the next thing. What else am I doing? So you have to constantly try and make yourself redundant. And I think at that point, it's also good to maybe scale back the hours a little bit because ultimately more hours worked doesn't equal like a linear increase in productivity at all. And you really risk burning yourself out. And when you burn yourself out, it could mean you just, abandon the whole project or at least out of action for a few weeks or a couple of months or something. So yeah, I'd say like at the beginning, unfortunately, it's kind of a bullet you have to bite sometimes, but try and, get out of that as fast as possible.
Yeah, I know. And I like the concept of making it redundant, right? So here you are doing all the hats. Then you figure out what hat maybe is the most important or the one that you don't like and say, okay, who can I have that's going to take this a level higher than me and bring that person on? So now I have bandwidth to do here, but not necessarily dump all that extra time into the business. Now it might be time to dump that time into yourself so that you don't burn out or don't go crazy. I know I'm practicing a speech right now and it's a new speech for me. After I've repeated it too many times, I start making errors because I've done it too many. Like my brain needs a break from the story and just come back to it. So I find that's kind of the same in the business world too.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's true with everything in life, I think. We do a lot of our kind of processing subconsciously, and that's why you need to take a break. I mean, that's the same reason, why sometimes we have our best ideas kind of going for a walk or doing exercise or being in the shower or whatever, and like not actually sitting in front of the problem and trying to think about the problem, but actually doing something else, and then suddenly pops into your mind.
Yeah, no, I like it. What do you think the hardest thing is about being the CEO?
I think you carry a lot of responsibility and a lot of burden that people aren't necessarily always aware of, because you're kind of and we have a really fantastic team and really fantastic shareholders. So fortunately, this only happens to a very small degree with me, but I know of other founders where this happens more. But kind of facing like a lot of pressure from investors to kind of be very cutthroat and efficient, and then facing pressure from the team, to be kind of a bit more rounded and kind of compassionate than just focusing on those core things, and it's kind of seeing the bigger picture. I think also a lot of what you do kind of goes underappreciated, I think. But ultimately, I think what it comes down to is you are kind of primarily responsible for everything, so it's hard to ever shut off. Like for most people who are just kind of working at a company, they can really switch off in the evening because like nothing is going to happen. That is going to absolutely destroy everything if they aren't constantly there. But I think for the CEO, that's your burden, your responsibility. But then again, there are many perks to the role as well. But yeah, it's not for everyone.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it is a level. I feel responsible for all the people that help me with their families, right? Okay, like everything has to go because there's a lot of people depending on this machine working and generating revenue so that everybody gets to sleep at night and has Christmas presents underneath the tree and all those types of things. Um, what methodology do you use to make hard decisions?
Well, I think it's important to keep your kind of values in mind. So like what's the most important thing to you, and then make decisions based on that. I also think with very important decisions, it's good to seek advice from trusted advisors. It doesn't mean you have to do what they suggest. Like there have been times where I had to make a difficult decision, got advice from a lot of people, made the opposite decision of what they told me to, and now it ended up working out for us, for the better. But I certainly don't regret getting their advice. So I think that's really, really important. But also just if it's possible, taking a bit of time to think about it, like sleeping on it, for example, can make a big difference in helping you make a more rational decision. But at its core, it's making the decision in line with your values and what you want the company to achieve.
Have you ever had to fire somebody?
Yes, but fortunately, only ever, like kind of never because we had to from a cost cutting perspective. Only ever if they did something or many things quite wrong, in which case, it would be an absolutely horrible thing for me to fire someone who's doing their job really well, did nothing wrong, but we have to because of a budget cut. Fortunately, that hasn't happened. But I feel a lot less, concerned if somebody is actively wasting kind of company time, resources, not doing their job properly, even though they very well could be. Then it's a much simpler kind of process.
No, I've read the motto of hire slow, fire fast if it's not working. Um, and I have found that to be more true than not every single time. Just making sure, okay, this candidate fits the culture, fits the job, has the skill set, or is at least willing to learn. And then the other pieces can kind of fall into place. But I've definitely done the opposite before, and it is the worst. Like, I'm like, I swear I'll never do this again. This is the worst thing ever. We were in a spot, we needed to hire somebody. They weren't quite the fit, but I thought it would work. And then you're forcing a square peg in a wrong hole, like a round hole for until it doesn't work, right? Until everybody's like, okay, nobody's winning in this situation.
No, absolutely. I've been there too. I think hire slow, fire fast is a very good motto.
Okay, so what are you most proud of about yourself and your achievements thus far?
Well, I think we've got a really good team. I think that's what it comes down to. What we do certainly wouldn't be possible without the team that we have. And that's what I'm most proud of. I've been involved in fact, yeah, I was directly involved in hiring everyone currently on the team. I mean, that's not obviously going to be the case forever. But, we've made some wrong hires in the past, but that's been rectified. But the team we have now is absolutely brilliant. And I'm convinced that with the team we have, we can produce the results that a team, 3 or 4 times bigger at another company might. So yeah, they're very, very good people, very efficient. And also everyone gets on very well. And we have a very good company culture.
And what do you attribute that to?
Well, I heard a while ago kind of that the CEO's 2 main responsibilities are 1, setting the company culture, and then 2, making sure you don't run out of money. So I believe that, and I take it very seriously. So half of that is setting a good company culture. So that's something that I'm very kind of fixated on. Hiring people who would really fit in. And I think that it's the result of that. It's the result of the way the people in the team already act, and then making sure, being kind of very selective and careful in who we bring on.
Do you ever use your platform for freelancers yourself then for the internal?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. Yeah.
Can you tell me about a time where you realized that life was more than just success?
I had a situation actually a few months ago which I, at the time felt was a near-death experience. In hindsight, it wasn't. So I'm completely fine.
That's all of us, though. In this situation, things feel this big. And then when we get away from it, we're like, well, that wasn't as dramatic as it felt at the time, but okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But essentially, what happened in the moment, and if you would have asked me, the day before this happened, do I have any regrets? I'd have said no. And I absolutely meant it. But then in that moment where I felt like this, might be it, all I could think about were regrets. And those regrets kind of were around well, I've spent so much time building this business and not really taking enough care of myself, for example. So, I think for a long time now, I at least, I would say that I don't think that success is everything, but, I definitely believe it, more after that, because for me, my biggest fear is regrets, more than anything else. So basically I live my life in a way that, minimizes that.
Do you want to elaborate on this thing that happened a few months ago that made you wake up to this?
Well, without getting into specifics, it was, it was just kind of me doing a bunch of silly things and putting myself in a silly situation, which I shouldn't have. But, I think it really worked out for the better, because the positive outcome, the kind of the silver lining here, is that I realized, I need to take better care of myself. I need to make some positive changes in my life, which I have been doing over the past few months, and it's really paid dividends. So, it wasn't a nice situation at the time, but, well, I suppose, I made the most of it, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. I find for me that success in business is easy. because you have all these numbers and metrics, an easy way to say like, hey, we're making progress. And then when it comes to success at home or success as a mother or success as a friend, I have to really define what that looks like so that I can say, okay, I am working towards that or I'm not. But if I leave it undefined, then that area is going to always suffer. And so for me to be able to balance success, I started to have to be like, okay, here's what success looks like in these different categories in my life. Am I getting closer to what that success is, or is this decision pulling me away from it? And that's been a huge tool to just keep me balanced and not focused on the thing that gives me the easiest feedback, which is stimulating, which is like I love business. It filters into every single thing I do. And so I have to use those business principles in my home life and friendship lives, because otherwise I will not do well at them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very good point. It's much less tangible, these things, but they're very important. I think some great advice I once heard is like, would you be, like, who do you treat better, your family or your coworkers? Like, would you say this to your coworker? Something you say to your family, would you say that to your coworker? I think it's really important to keep in mind sometimes. It's really good not to take people for granted.
Ooh, I like that little one. Would you say this to a coworker, not just a family member? That's helpful. That's very helpful. Okay, so what if somebody's doing a great job at your company? How do they know? Like, how do you reward and incentivize and support your staff?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, we tell them. I kind of have a reputation for getting very excited over things, so I think people know. And then, well, we have different incentive schemes, like, for example, share options. I think it's very important for people working in, especially an early stage startup, to own a piece of the pie that they are essentially building. And hopefully that's worth something, big one day for them. And they can certainly play a role in making that happen. So yeah, I mean, I think a combination of kind of, praising people and also giving them some other incentives too.
So what's your goal for the company in the next 5 years?
I think within the next 5 years, it's absolutely possible to have a big impact on the freelancing industry and really change it for the better. I mean, if we sustain our current rate of growth, then, well, we'll be a very serious contender in the marketplace very soon, like kind of probably certainly within the top 10 platforms by user base size. And, in what is a market with several multi-billion-dollar companies. Yeah, I think our goal is absolutely to change this space for the better, to give freelancers a better alternative to the existing solutions, which have stayed the same for 15 years at this point. And that's our goal, kind of shake things up.
Okay. And tell me again your big differentiator right now. So if people who are listening, they know to head over to your site and start using it. What sets you apart from your competitors?
Fundamentally, our competitors prioritize clients at the expense of freelancers, whereas we prioritize freelancers because ultimately that way we're also prioritizing clients. Because if we really prioritize freelancers, we have the best pool of talent for our clients to access in the best possible way. And what that breaks down to is, for example, not charging freelancers commission fees. Allowing freelancers to speak with their clients off platform, which are both, big platforms right now, they charge commission fees and ban you from speaking to your clients off platform in any way, so they can continue that commission fee. So we have a few different things like that, but ultimately what it comes down to is prioritizing the freelancer, because that way we give the best experience to the clients as well.
Okay, so tell us where we find out more about the company and how all the good things can happen for the listeners.
Yeah, well, if you want to find out more about us, you can Google Revolancer, and you'll find the website and get started there. We've also got very active social media accounts, so we post some interesting stuff on there. If you're interested, again, if you just search for Revolancer, they'll come up as well.
Excellent. Well, I loved learning more about you and your business today, so thank you for joining us.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me.
Yes.